Hi, everyone. I'm Diane McGinnis, and welcome to Families Future Present. I can't tell you how pleased I am today to be speaking with Professor Michael Ungar. Dr. Ungar is a family therapist, professor of social work at Dalhousie University, where he holds the Canada Research Chair in Child and Family Community Resilience. Since 2002, Dr. Ungar has directed the Resilience Research Center. His studies have focused on the resilience of children and families involved with child welfare, mental health services, refugee and immigrant youth, populations, and community resilience. And I cannot be more pleased that Dr. Ungar has agreed to speak with me today on Families Future Present. Hi, Dr. Ungar. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Diane. Pleasure.
Thank you. I talk a lot to my clients about, the experience of children as they're going through separation and divorce. And as a family law lawyer and someone who represents children in custody disputes, I've seen what conflict among parents can do to the children's experience of separation and divorce. And I'm just wondering if you could just talk a little bit about what you see as particular risk factors in terms of resilience in children as they experience separation and divorce of their parents.
Sure. Well, some of them are pretty obvious. The disruption in terms of housing, disruption in terms of routines. Often what we know is that children's economic well-being, the sense of economic security changes. They were in a certain number of activities. One parent may not be able to afford those activities. There's a lot more stress financially in the family. But it can be also very small things, just the stress of changing bedtimes or having to have two sets of stuffed animals in two different places, some minor emotional things like that. A lot of these things are about, often they're structural. Because children sort of adapt to the emotional thing about, now I'm with dad or now I'm with mom and then I'm going to do this thing. Often the emotional stuff can get kind of sorted out reasonably quickly if obviously the parents aren't yelling at each other and there's not a lot of overt conflict. Mm-hmm. But children tend to experience the stress of very minor things, like I suddenly can't do that sport, or I can't have that sport, or suddenly my diet is changed, or the stress of being on the school bus longer, or whatever. Some of those things often compound, they gather in children. It often comes down to, if I had one bit of advice, it's about thinking about each of these situations from the point of view of the child, because they didn't choose the separation. So often their lives are disrupted, whether it's a relationship or whatever. And the more we can do to sort of create consistency in their lives, it seems like that decreases the risk. Children can, by the way, I just don't want to overstate that. There's nothing wrong with changing those routines a bit. Like, this is your bedtime here and this is your bedtime there. The trick seems to be that there is a bedtime in each place. Mm-hmm. Children are incredibly malleable. My kids, they go to school. Teachers tell them to do things that they would never, ever agree to do at home, ever. They're very good at figuring out multiple sets of rules, but there are rules.
So part of what I'm doing in this particular cluster of videos is talking about COVID collateral, like what's happening because of COVID. So a lot of the things that we've talked about in terms of resilience and community are significantly challenged for parents who are separating and then cloistered in their homes. Yeah. So do you have any kind of reflections on the experience of what children are experiencing now with, their screens being right here, and what parents might be able to do to improve resilience and how kids cope?
Yeah. Well, just on one level, of course, it's difficult to have a child moving back and forth between households if you don't have complete trust that the other family is social distancing and safe. They could literally be the conduit. Though it's not, children aren't great carriers supposedly of the virus, but still it's a risk enough still there. So we do see sort of what I'm hearing from a lot of families is they're basically not having the regular visitation schedules for children, which is upsetting to especially younger children. Then, of course, you do have disrupted sleep patterns. You have lack of structure. They've lost their social networks. There's more screen time, and we know more screen time, especially passive screen time. Too many TikTok videos is equated with more likelihood for anxiety, depression. So there's a lot of risk factors in this period of social isolation. And my advice back to parents is to go back to some of those basics: structure, bedtimes, wake up times, chores, a little bit of homework, expectations to make a contribution in the family home, maintaining relationships using internet technologies that are available. In fact, we know that, for instance, there's far less harm to being on screens when they're active engagement as opposed to passive screen time. So, you know, watching TikTok videos, not so good. Posting TikTok videos, a little bit better. Engaging in some sort of communication with grandparents and other people, much, much better. Even gaming, where you're in a group and you're actually participating in, you know, tech, whatever they do. I watch my kids do that stuff.
Yeah.
Again, better. So monitor the screen time. Don't drop the expectations. Keep routines. And definitely, you know, do things that, you know, engage, that help the child to develop new identities. My 17-year-old cooked a meal the other night. He doesn't often do that, but actually it was interesting to watch him just decide that he's going to take on some little bit of new identities here in the family. He does cook a little bit anyways, more for himself than for the whole family. But he took it on for the whole family. And I think there was a little bit of searching, like he's a hockey player, he can't do that. So he's moving into something else that he can assert. So as we begin to think about those kinds of resilience factors, the kids are going to come through this. And I'm quite optimistic that they will come through this, especially if there are a lot of resources around them, they'll do fine.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. There's lots to think about, and I really value it. Thank you so much.